Expect more near-term downward pressure on Tesla stock, says an analyst.
Let's talk about Tesla first because it is a driver of the market, if you will. I mean, this is a stock that really does have a lot of influence on certain parts of the market dynamic right now. Do you feel as though this downward momentum that we've seen near to medium term is justified, and how much further could it go?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the near term, I mean, we're talking about another year at least until the Model 2 comes. So the stock really sort of lacks a very clear catalyst over that period. So, there is still going to be some downward pressure in the stock. But, there's risk rewards to the name. And so we're still equal weight on it.
Okay, if that's the case for Tesla, is it still best in breed with regard to the EV makers out there, the entire industry?
Well, I'm waiting on the edge of my seat to find out whether or not Tesla is still best in breed, or perhaps if the competition has in fact come, finally, for Tesla. The suspense is killing me here. Gosh, I really don't know what we're going to hear from the analyst. After all, production's pretty easy. It's prototypes that are hard, so anyone want to guess? I can't take the suspense anymore. Let's hear what he's got to say.
Every single one of them, from China to the U.S., everywhere else, has seen some of those publicly traded stocks take a huge hit. Is there a value proposition that eventually comes to fruition because Tesla is, in fact, the best that we have out here on the American side of things, market cap-wise right now, as opposed to some of the EV names perhaps out in China these days?
Tesla does have a current leadership position here. I think in the near term, we're still talking about slowing deliveries. I think from the broader industry, EVs are a challenge, and that was sort of the focus of our report this morning, particularly from a regulatory challenge. And we'll see what happens with, the White House proposed, apparently changes coming to the regulations that are already out there, which are quite aggressive and probably mean more headwinds for the traditional automakers as they're forced to meet them.
He's certainly on point regarding headwinds for traditional automotive manufacturers, many of whom I personally don't believe will still be operating a decade from now.
Exactly is the trade right now then within autos? Is there a place that there is a relative value proposition that stands out in your mind across the sphere from ICE to EV?
I mean, we're bullish on a handful of suppliers, BorgWarner being our top pick. I think it's a company that's both diversified on the internal combustion engine and in e-powertrain. And I think they're positioned regardless of how smooth that transition occurs. I think for the traditional automakers, there's just numerous challenges. You have the regulatory push toward EVs, and we're seeing the consumer demand is slowing, and yet they need to sell more of these. Particularly by 2026, the EPA rules really require them to sell around 9%. The Detroit's at 3 or around 3.
Again, just taking a quick break here. Disclosures on all the stocks being discussed and covered, in particular, just focusing on Tesla. This analyst does not own Tesla stock. Analyst family does not own Tesla stock. Analyst firm holding more than 1% Tesla stock? No. I find it pretty remarkable that there are analysts covering Tesla, among other stocks, who themselves don't own Tesla stock. Sometimes I understand their employer doesn't want them, but whose family? I mean, it's like, hey, dad, mum, yo, brother, sister, there's something here. None of them? It seems a bit weird. And I'm not suggesting that they're 100% all in on Tesla stock, but none? Look forward to checking back in a decade and seeing how well this has aged.
26, the EPA rules really require them to sell around 9%. The Detroit's at 3 or around 3 today. You have pricing pressure that's going to put pressure on those stocks. That's been a big driver of their profitability. And all the indicators are that pricing is in decline, probably driven by the high amount of capacity in the industry, which I don't think people are focusing enough on.
So after hearing that Tesla stock faces near-term pressure, that EV sales are slowing, over to Yahoo, who've titled this one, Tesla stock falls over China concerns, including BYD. Okay, so, right. It's cool that they know why Tesla stock is down a little bit today, because I don't.
All right, well, Tesla shares tumbling to new multi-week lows on troubles in China, now slowing China shipments and new price cuts in the region, spelling some caution for the year ahead. For more on this, we want to bring in Dan Levy. He is Barclays' senior autos analyst. Dan, it's great to see you again. So we've seen the reaction obviously play out in shares over the last 2 days. Concerns about what we're seeing demand-wise in China. Is some of this a bit overdone, or what do you think?
Yeah, thank you, Sean, Brad, for having me. Look, I think what we're seeing playing out is the broader theme that we've been talking about into the year, which is that this is really a year about pivoting from supply constraints to demand constraints. And you're seeing that playing out in the EV market, where, and this is something we've been seeing in the back half of last year, especially, where you're seeing some questions on demand. What's the sustainable pace of volume?
The narrative that won't go away until it does go away, which will be at some point in the future when people realize they were completely wrong. EV demand slowing down, going away, no bro. It's just that there are some companies today trying and failing to compete with Tesla by trying and failing to produce products for comparable cost with comparable features and functionality. Consumers don't want overpriced turds. And if Tesla wasn't making any vehicles, then maybe their overpriced turds would actually look like a great deal. But Tesla is making vehicles. Exceptional value. Now, regarding China and the supposed... there's so much to discuss here. These supposed issues in China. Again, first of all, Tesla's Shanghai factory in China is their global export hub. So focusing on domestic deliveries in China, it's a meaningless metric because every month some of the vehicles produced in China are sold outside of China. Sometimes a lot of the vehicles produced in China are sold outside of China. We should be focused on global deliveries. Anything less than that is meaningless at best. But in addition, for those who don't know, in China, again, irrelevant data point, for the month of February, Chinese New Year, essentially a massive 2-week holiday in China took place in February. So what appears, again, I mean, the domestic sales in China are not relevant, but let's pretend they are. What appears like a decline, an inexplicable decline, a lack of demand, an EV demand slowdown, is a fucking 2-week holiday that occurred in February.
The February data for Tesla in China was probably impacted by Chinese New Year. So, we don't want to we don't want to focus too much into that, but
Dude, spat, facts. I'm glad he's aware. But will he elaborate on this point and mention that deliveries domestically in China are meaningless because, again, Shanghai is their global export hub?
We are below consensus on first quarter deliveries, roughly 450,000 units. And, look, in addition to, the dynamics around Chinese New Year, you have some slowdown in Fremont related to the refresh of Model 3. You have some issues with Berlin production around Red Sea delays. And just broadly, they're sitting on a lot of inventory. And so this, I think, underpins our more a conservative view versus consensus deliveries in 2024. We're at roughly 2 million. Consensus is 2.1 million. Just think that there's going to be some challenges on meeting some of the consensus numbers.
Dan, we had continued to monitor, at least for, I want to say a couple years now, a shift in sentiment from some of the consumers within the region towards other homegrown brands, and perhaps why BYD has been able to see their own successes within the region skyrocket and move past Tesla even. How much of it is tied back to that mindset as well?
Listen, I think this is a key theme in the auto industry. It's the rise of BYD and some of the other domestic Chinese that have really figured out the cost dynamics. Tesla has actually fared okay in China. They've generally maintained in the BEV market, call it high single digit, low double digit market share, which is very respectable.
Stunning, actually, for a couple of reasons. One, China is China, and often you'll find a bit of a home team advantage with people being more interested in supporting local companies. In addition, a typical BYD vehicle in China is selling for roughly 1/3 the price of the average Tesla. In the best case, maybe 1/2 of the cost. I don't need to explain why if you're making vehicles 1/3 the price or half the price, on average, consumers are probably going to be buying more of them. Basic economics. That being said, Tesla's Model Y is outselling any other vehicle in China by any company, Chinese or otherwise. Literally number one at a significant price premium. Now, to be clear, part of the reason that many vehicles produced in China by Chinese companies can be sold for a fraction that of a Tesla vehicle. It's not because their engineering is light years ahead of Tesla, it's because some of the features, functionalities not on par. So with proper context, it's actually remarkable how well Tesla is selling vehicles in China. That said, as I keep mentioning, there's going to be invasion of well-priced, reasonable Chinese electric vehicles flooding into Europe, the United States, and other parts of the world coming soon. These are the vehicles companies like Toyota, Mazda, Honda, Volkswagen should be really concerned about.
It is obviously below where BYD is, where they've been pacing lately at roughly 1/4 of the market. So I think there is still room for Tesla to grow volumes, even with BYD doing well. But it is a reminder that, of the regions where Tesla's competing, Europe, US, China, China is by far going to be the most competitive and the most intense. We've seen some price cuts lately, and that's where it's a bit trickier for Tesla versus other regions.
Dan, and we still not seen the worst for Tesla when it comes to the pricing wars and the pressure that will likely put on stock?
Well, there's probably more price cuts coming. This is what we're including in our model. Our view is that probably continues for at least the first half of the year. We actually have pricing flattening out in the back half of the year. I would say one thing that you've seen change a little bit with Tesla is that as opposed to last year, where there were sort of more open and wide price cuts from them, what we've seen really in the last, call it 6 months, is more, I would call it discrete discounting, other forms of discounting. I think in the US, some of the large price cuts that they did last year were maybe not as stimulative of demand. This is why they're constantly facing this question of elasticity of demand, because the price cuts really hadn't driven the type of volume that they maybe hoped for. And I think where you're maybe seeing a little bit of a pivot is holding the line a little more on pricing rather than the approach last year, which was all we care about is volume. Remember the comment from Elon a year ago that we could theoretically sell cars at no profit. And that view has changed, that they're clearly being a little more sensitive around the margin line.
Dan, thanks so much for taking the time here today, breaking down some of the key themes that investors are tracking around Tesla and the broader EV landscape. Dan Levy, who is the Barclays Senior Autos Analyst. Appreciate the time.
So after hearing those comments, I just wanted to show Dan's history on Tesla stock going back to mid-2019, with Tesla stock in the mid-teens. Not to suggest that I disagree with everything Dan said, although a lot, especially the idea that EV demand is slowing. Anyway, but this is the guy who you just heard from, who was recommending investors sell Tesla stock at $15 a share, at 15, at 15, at 15, at 21, at 22, at 25, at 31, at 31, at 34. Then switched to a hold after it approximately doubled from there to nearly 50. Continue to hold around 50 and around 70 and 80 and 90, 100, 150, 140, etc. Continue to hold around 250. Keep holding around 200. Keep holding. Then suggests investors buy at $362 per share and $325 and $336, $241, $245, $245. Many more buy recommendations in the high 100s and early 200s, and now hold. Context, if I were an analyst, and I'm not, and if I recommended people do things with stocks, which I don't, never have, never will, you'd need a very, very, very small brain to ever do that on the internet, because people are dumb. They'll follow your advice because they're idiots. People don't like to think for themselves, which is why I encourage everybody listening to do exactly that. Use your own brain and your balls and make decisions for yourself, bitch. That being said, if I were an analyst, based on my own buying activity, if that was how my ratings were being assigned, this would be a sea of blue and a sea of buys. And there'd likely be a version of me 10 years from now looking back at this going, oh, look, see, I was buying that whole time and look where Tesla is today. The reason I mention this is just to give some historic context. I'm not quite sure how anyone back in mid-2019 and early into 2020 would have been recommending to sell Tesla stock. I literally got so frustrated with, the FUD I was hearing, I got mad, did some ayahuasca and thought I need to tell some motherfuckers. And so I started this YouTube channel in November 2019. And what are we now, at 10x or so from there? Is it possible that Dan may be missing a few obvious things again? Just asking the question. Want more content? Early access? Bunch of perks? Click the links in the pinned comment. AG1 has given me a massive, meaningful boost in energy, allowing me to do a lot more every day, including using my brain more and using my body more. I highly recommend you guys and girls check it out. It's an excellent way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's got 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus prebiotics and probiotics and digestive enzymes and adaptogens to help you deal with stress. Plus, if you click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR, you can get yourself a 1-year free supply of vitamin D3 and K2. But don't take my word for it. Here's what some of you guys and girls have to say. AG1 has changed my life. I was, as you described, treating myself like a circus, ate like trash, rarely exercised, used alcohol as a stress crutch, cannabis also. AG1 is what gave me the kick in the ass, got me back to the gym, motivated me to do more for myself, family, my business, etc. Keep doing what you do. Now, I know there's some skeptics, the same kind of people who think Elon Musk is a fraud, reading this going, what do you thought? There's no way that's possible, bro. It must be a placebo effect. Believe it or not, this is a recurring theme. If you give your body everything it needs to feel and perform its best, including having a lot more energy, you'll need ways to use that energy. For me personally, that includes more exercise, moving my body more social activity, and more cognitively demanding tasks, including producing a fuck ton of exclusive content over on Twitter and on Patreon, plus my daily YouTube uploads. The proof's in the pudding. On to another testimonial from a viewer of this channel. SMR, you asked me to provide feedback on AG1. Here it is. It has helped with mental acuity, stamina, and intestinal waste management. Can't read between the lines. It certainly helps with regularity and digestion. That's what the digestive enzymes are for. It has also dramatically reduced my cravings for sugar. You guys need to stop eating sugar. It's fucking poison. I'm 50, 5'9", and overweight, aka a fat motherfucker. I think that's a technical term for overweight, isn't it? Is it fat motherfucker or obese? I can't remember. I average 100 hours a week in the West Texas oil fields as a safety supervisor. Jesus Christ, dude. No wonder you're struggling to keep your weight under control. 100 hours a week. Brutal. It has helped me lose weight. It is not an appetite suppressant. It can help fat people suppress cravings, and motivation to be healthier is critical for changing your diet. Love you, brother. Again, this is a great point. It's something people really don't seem to grasp. If you have more energy, everything becomes easier. It's like turning on easy mode for life. A few years ago, before I was taking AG1, my health was trash. I was struggling to get through the day, had afternoon fatigue. The last thing I wanted to do was either use my brain or move my body. Didn't have the energy. Now, my biggest struggle every day is figuring out ways to use that energy. I'm exercising way more, doing a lot more with my friends and family, and of course, my work output has increased substantially. And you can fact check me. Check out the average length of my videos I was posting to YouTube 3 years ago. Need I say more? And one final testimonial. Love this one. Okay, here's the deal for me with this AG1 shit. I'm 41 years old and not the type to eat, drink, smoke, or sleep healthy, so I was skeptical. That being said, here's what I experienced. Day 1, meh. Day 2, afternoon fatigue was about 45 minutes late. Day 3, 0 afternoon fatigue. Day 4, 0 afternoon fatigue plus extra energy. Day 5, again, 0 afternoon fatigue plus energy, wondering, what the fuck, really? See, this is the thing, right? The results for many people are just almost too good to be true. This is the same experience I had. My afternoon fatigue just vanished out of nowhere. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Why am I not tired in the afternoons anymore? Surely, it's not that AG1, is it? Turns out it was. Day 6 and 7, same thing. Day 8, same thing. Plus, I had the want to get things done around the house that I normally would slack off and not get done. Again, the point, extra energy, you'll need to use it, you'll find ways to use it. Day 9, 10, and 11, and today is day 12. I fucking love it. So however you managed to get me to buy it, I'm so glad you did. Thank you so much, SMR. It really changed me so far. Guys, this shit really works. Just try it. By the way, this is the reason I continue to relentlessly promote AG1. A lot of people get real fucking mad in the comments. Oh my God, Snake Oil Salmon's sold out. Oh my God, he's a scammer. This is fraud. But constantly, I'm pretty sure everyone making these comments is also currently short Tesla stock. I'm not particularly concerned about people having a negative perception, those folks suffering from small brain syndrome, still living in my bum's basement syndrome, etc., writing mean comments, claiming AG1's a scam or it doesn't work. I mean, bro, when I get feedback like this is what keeps me going. Just try this stuff for a month, and if you don't get these results, get your money back. See, it's a literal no-brainer. It's an IQ test at this point in time. Testimonial after testimonial after testimonial like this. Get your money back if it doesn't work. Just try it for a month, and if it doesn't work, get your money back. Today's the day. It's finally time. Be like this guy who was a massive skeptic, but finally, after 1,000 promotions in a row, caved in, tried AG1, and has results like this. Head to drinkag1.com/SMR or click the link in the pinned comment, and please, let me know how you're feeling in a few weeks' time. Now, if you'll excuse me, time to put my extra energy to good use. I'll be recording some more exclusive content for Patreon and my Twitter subscribers. So click the links in the pinned comment. See you over on Twitter and or Patreon, and don't forget to grab your AG1. Love ya.